Hey, you looking at me? You looking at me? Huh? What are you gonna do about it, huh? What's up? What's up, guys? My name is Jeremy. Today I want to get into a little bit about myself that I maybe haven't went over yet, or just something to fill y'all's curiosity about my history, which I'm not that important, right? Anyway, yeah, my name is Jeremy. No, Alexander is not my last name. I'm 28 years old, I'm married, and I have 4 children. Yes, 4, y'all have met 3. I have Landon, Addison, London, and Zahara. Addison is my oldest daughter, and I have yet to meet her. She will be 13 this August. After her comes London, then Landon, and Zahara. I was expecting 2 children on the way at the young age of 15, my oldest 2 daughters, London and Addison. London is my Christmas time baby. Growing up, my dad owned an auto parts. He owned 2 Shell stations, or 2 gas stations, I should say. I played sports. I played baseball. I played football. As I grew older, instead of taking things more serious, as in school or sports, I was too busy chasing women, chasing girls. They had my full-blown attention, and I wasn't thinking at a young age. Now, if I could go back in time, I would definitely take things more serious. But we can't go back in time, right? So now all I can try to do is instill my life experience and things I've been through into my children, and maybe let them learn from my mistakes, or try to convince them of what way to lead in life. That's all I can do. With my son, I'm trying to point him in the direction I wish I would have been pointed, and it is a lot harder to do than it is to say, or easier said than done. As I was growing up, I had anything I wanted, right? I was an only child at home. My dad bought me anything I wanted. I was spoiled, but I loved my father very much. He passed away in 2015. But I miss my dad very much. When he died, it was very hard on me. I never thought I would get over it. To this day, I'm still scarred by the fact of losing him. I remember my wife coming to me when I was in the bathtub, and I could hear she was upset. She was on the phone, and for somehow or another, I knew that it was my dad gone. And I remember asking her very vividly. I asked her, "Is it over?" And she said, "Yeah." And I don't really remember too much after that point. Too much of that day. But it's still hard to think about, really. Anytime you lose a parent. I knew the day would come. My dad was a lot older than other children's dad that was my age. He died at 70 years old. He was born in 1944, died in 2015. So I think he was, 70. He was about to be 71 years old that July. He died actually the day I bought my house, or signed the papers on it. I remember driving to sign the papers on my house, bawling like a baby. But I didn't know what to do. Maybe I should have put that off. But I didn't know what to do. I wasn't thinking right. But most of that day I don't remember. But I do remember vividly driving to buy the house, crying my ass off. But yeah, my son, that's another reason I'm very much messed up, I guess, a little mentally, because he almost died on us. He had meningitis and group V strep when he was born, and he had to have a VP shunt placed in his brain. But he was in the hospital. The NICU is what they call it, NICU, I believe, or ICU. There's an N in front of it. I don't know I can't remember what it was meant for, neonatal or something. Anyway, he was in there for over 4 months. He had, as I said, had to have that shunt put in to drain fluid. That most people, we have ventricles or what have you that do it naturally to keep fluid from building up on our brain. But my son, his didn't work. It was infected, so basically had to have an artificial tubing placed in his head. And that played a big toll on my anxiety after that point, especially having that doctor tell me my son wasn't going to make it. was very troubling. I didn't know how to, I didn't know how to react to that at such a young age. I was 17 years old when my son was born. I was a baby myself. I didn't know how to handle stress of that magnitude. I was always taken care of my entire life as a child. I was, as I just said, a child myself. But at that point, I had London. I had Addison, or my oldest daughter also, Addison, but I had never met her. I hadn't met her at that point, and I still haven't. I've had the DNA test done on Addison, but we'll get into that later on down the road. Anyhow, yes, I had London whenever Landon was in the hospital, and so I was already a father at that point. But yeah, I was still young. But after the 4 months of being in the ICU, he got out and didn't really have much trouble after that up until 2000 and I want to say 14. He had to have that shunt replaced because it was blocked on him. There was a major blockage in it. And he started having seizures and vomiting, and that's when we knew something was wrong. So we go back in, and they basically just replaced the shunt, do it all over again. And that's really the last scare we had. Yearly, he has to go in and get a nuclear dye test done on it to make sure it's pumping right, there ain't no blockages. Just his annual checkup to make sure everything's running good. Until the next time it does block, because there will be a next time. Let's hope that it's longer than the time period in between than last time. But we can just hope for the best, right, and pray, and hope that somebody's up there listening. But during the time he was in the hospital, like I said, that's around the time my dad's health started going down a little bit around that time. And my wife's dad, he owned an insurance company. Had a very good job. He owned it. It wasn't until a few years after it he didn't own the company anymore. But during that time period, we were well off. He had a $200,000 car sitting in the garage. It was a 2006 GT40. That's my shaggy looking behind sitting beside it. He also had a Mustang Shelby, a 2007 edition. It cost a good upwards of $77,000. At the time, my wife drove a 2002 yellow Hummer H2. He also had a 2006 blue Hummer H2. And at the time, I was driving a white Z71 2006 Chevrolet with a lift kit on it. Spoiled little brat, really. I say all that to make a point of how people usually come up from nothing to something. Me, I started with everything, married into everything, but it all got taken away so quickly. Not that it got taken away, but the people or our families that was supporting us or had the money or the beings to buy anything we needed or wanted or take care of us, basically, when my son was dying in the hospital, which I'm very fortunate for that and grateful. But I say all that to show that it's better to really earn something for yourself. This is just my opinion. And take care of your family on your own. There's a sense of pride that comes from that, knowing that you can do it, self-independent, and you don't have to worry about anybody providing for you or taking care of you. And I had to learn that very quickly. I have separation anxiety from my children. I've said that a few times. So we've never had a babysitter more than maybe twice. And if we did, it was somebody very close to us family-wise. Speaking of family, I do have family. They still live in Citronelle. My mom, she lives close to Gulf Shores, Alabama. But I very rarely see anybody. It's just me and my immediate family, really, in my household. We don't do much. My anxiety problems keep me, pretty much maintained to the house or at work. But there's not really much else to say about my life. We moved to where we're at now in 2015. Before that, we lived in an apartment in Saraland, Alabama. Before that, we lived in Citronelle. We've lived all over, really. We got rocky Oh, my Rocky boy. We got him about a month after. No, when was it? It was about 6 months after we bought the house in July or June of 2015. We got him that April or May. No, we got him in May because my birthday's in May. I remember getting him that weekend of my birthday. And I love Rocky Boy, as y'all can see, like a son. I would lose my mind if anything happened to my sweet little puppy. His mom is a wolf. His dad is a German Shepherd. Luckily, he's took his dad's traits as far as acting. You could see a little bit of his mom in him. Especially when he was younger, he would howl all night. Not bark, he would howl. But yeah, Rocky, he's my buddy. He's, hell, like my other son. Yeah, as I said, there ain't much else to really talk about. We did get Rocky a friend. His name was Bear. They used to fight all the time, play fighting. And Bear, if y'all notice my window units, Bear used to tear the sides of them off with his paws and jump straight out the window.
Watch out, Rocky. Come on. Go, Bear. Go.
But yeah, Bear, he got ran over one night. Him and Rocky both got out. I thought Rocky was gone. I couldn't find him that night. We found Bear in the highway right by the house. And there was another big blood stain beside Bear. And I thought maybe it was Rocky and somebody had picked Rocky up. If maybe he survived and maybe somebody took him to an all-night vet. But that night I was freaking out, cried myself to sleep. That morning I got up to go look for him again. I was putting my boots on and I heard my son open the door and he hollered, "Rocky!" And he was almost crying happy, and there come Rocky across the yard. He made it. Still don't know where he went to this day. But he misses his friend Bear now. Bear was his friend. They played a lot. And I have a few clips. I'm going to show y'all one here of them two play fighting. But yeah, I miss Bear too. I'd be lying if I didn't. He was a good dog. He showed up with a shock collar on. I don't know how he got away from whatever boundaries his first owner had set up for him. But we put up posters and everything and still could not find his owner, so we ended up keeping him. But he was an escape artist, but he always came back until he didn't. But other than that, guys, I'm just a simple man, a young man, 28, be 29 this month, who takes care of his family day in and day out and love them dearly. I wouldn't know what to do without my children. They are my lifeline and everything I live for. I don't know what my future holds. I don't know what anything really holds. I just pray for the best, prepare for the worst, and keep moving forward, as I always say. Because you're not promised tomorrow. Nobody is. We just have to try to make the best of it, which I'm trying to do. I do suffer bad from anxiety, nervousness, depression. But you can't lay down to it. It will beat you to your knees if you let it, and you can't allow it to do that. My story isn't over. We'll keep going on. Until then, remember that life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. The most important thing is to enjoy your life, to be happy. It's all that matters. I have found that if you love life, life will love you back. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life of your years. Life is inherently risky. There is only one big risk you should avoid at all costs, and that is the risk of doing nothing. I love you all.